Yeah, it says we're live now.
Are we? Well, then let me say this then. Welcome, everyone, to the Fantasy Formula, and we're live ahead of qualifying for the Japanese Grand Prix. It's late for me. It's early for them, so we're going to be punchy for a whole hour, but we have a lot of answers for you because I know a lot of you have questions about your lineups this week. Zach and Terry, how you feeling?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. Where I'm pretty set on exactly where I need to go. There's only a few questions I had to ask for my team. But yeah, it's all about that budget.
I'm not. I'm still toying with my lineup, which is the first time ever I think I've entered a live stream with my lineup not decided. So there you go. This can be interesting.
There could be some peer pressure for Terry in the next hour. I've already locked in my team, so I am peer pressure proof. You can just ridicule my team if you like, but we can actually maybe nudge Terry one way or another over the course of the next few minutes. So as always, if you have a lineup you'd like to share with us, head on over to the FanAmp app, leave it in our base, and our producer will put it in a slide deck for me. We've already got about 6 or 7 of our lineups that we're going to review. We've got to start racking up some likes, and then I'll get the thumbs up to put some of those lineups up on the screen. So if you can hear me, make sure you hit that like button so we can get to the lineups faster. Zach, meanwhile, I think is co-streaming on TikTok on another screen, so he is not
I was just saying hi to everyone.
He's not having an episode for those of you that are watching on YouTube.
Wow.
Hey, Mike, welcome aboard. Hi, Austin. Thanks for joining us. Gentlemen, let's kick up the free practice 3 times, and let's just talk a little bit about what we saw in that session. 2 more red flags due to fires on the circuit, so I think some of that rain on Sunday is going to be a good change for us. Hopefully that will make sure we have no red flags during the race. And another McLaren 1-2. Terry, did anything stick out to you as you watched free practice 3 unfold? And are McLaren really the team to beat?
I think it kind of confirmed what we know, that there's a gap between McLaren and everybody else. Mercedes do look strong. I know that McLaren yesterday we talk about Mercedes being their strongest competitors, which kind of fits in with what we're seeing on the timing sheet as well. But with regards to what we saw, I think the top of it's as we expect it to be going into free practice 3. There's a lot of unknown, obviously, with weather and also with not getting as much running as we would want. With obviously, some outbreaks of wildfire in Japan, which I don't think we've had much of there in the past. We normally get rain in Japan. Can't remember the last time we stopped for wildfire on the track side at Japan, but there you go. And this is Formula One, isn't it? So, yeah, for me, I think it's shown us what we all expected. The middle is extremely tight, and anybody's guess really going into it. And I think there'd be a lot of nervous players, a lot of nervous drivers going into the opening couple of rounds, into that first part of the S's of the track come race day tomorrow, that's for sure.
Yeah, this is a circuit where turn 1, everyone's just going to be holding their breath to make sure all 20 cars get out there without having any collisions. There's one driver in particular that I'll get to a little bit later in the show that is known for his fair share of tangles at Suzuka. Now, Zach, when I look at this classification for FP3, one name that stands out is Verstappen. He's been complaining really all weekend about how that Red Bull hasn't quite gotten up to where he needs it to be. He's on 3 straight poles and 3 straight victories here, but it's looking less likely than ever that he's going to go for 4 in a row. Do you see a chance for Max to hit the podium here?
I mean, I hope so. I think there is still a chance, but I wasn't expecting Russell to be this quick in FP3. Only a 10th off of the McLaren boys. I think it's going to be hard to do it, but it is Verstappen. You know what I mean? So never say he can't, because then he'll just go and do it. So F1 fantasy terms, I'm not expecting anyone to still have him in his team. But yeah, podium. But yeah, podium's still on.
Could play a spoiler then for either McLaren or Mercedes for those teams that have the bigger constructor lineups. Maybe Max would play spoiler for them. But very interesting to see how he and his new teammate Yuki Tsunoda fare in that Red Bull at a home race for him too. And then just going over the latest betting lines, there's been some movement progressively throughout the weekend, because we started this weekend with Lando and Oscar basically a coin flip between one another. And now Lando's put some space between himself and his teammate after a couple of really strong free practice sessions. So Lando looks like he's edging out as the best 2x DRS boost option this week. Max was the clear-cut number 3, and now he's dropped behind George Russell. George looking for his 3rd straight podium. So this is some of the biggest news on the betting lines. I see some more folks joining us here. Hey, John. Welcome aboard. Hi, Ray. And then the latest sims from F1 Fantasy Tools have come out. And looks like it corroborates what we saw with the free practice data with Norris and Piastri leading the way. McLaren looking like they're going to be pretty dominant again as the top constructor. But then the big question for us is, do we want one of these midfield back marker constructors to gain cost cap? And then how do we balance price and points? Terry, is this one of the things that you're waffling on right now as you set your team?
Waffling. I love that one. Yeah, it's, you know me, I play for points. I'm not this budget building sort of thing at all, and I don't enjoy it. It's not a part of the game I enjoy doing. I want to put a team out that gets the most points and keeps getting the most points, but I also understand the needs this early in the season to balance it with budget. So I'm looking at a team potentially which has got a Haas in it and leaves like 8 million sat on the side, which just seems absolutely bonkers in my head, if I'm honest. But yeah, that's where we're at, really. So yeah, it's one of those. If you're playing for performance, you wouldn't have a team lineup like what I've currently got in my fantasy Formula One. If you're going on pure performance base, but if you're going on building a budget, then yeah. I mean, Michael's just put in the chat exactly the same as me. You know, leaving 7 million on the table with Piastri, McLaren, Haas. I'm in exactly the same boat currently with like 8 million sat on the table, and it just feels a bit wrong, if I'm honest. But then also the other ones just feel risky as well.
So for Mike and Terry, I think part of why you're there is to move from Piastri to Norris and get the rest of that cost cap down would cost you a -10. You can see on the screen here, there's not 10 points between them. So then you have, a -10 that's not really worth it, or having a few million left over. I think I'm okay with it, particularly if you're going from this lineup now to a Piastri, McLaren, Mercedes lineup, which I think will be so popular in the coming weeks. You don't want to take a -10 this week and a -10 next week to net lose a few points. So
yeah,
I think
that's my thinking. And I still feel like Oscar could obviously produce something ahead of Lando. I think there's actually the outside chance that he might still do something. So there's that element to it as well, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I completely agree. It is looking like potentially in the future weeks that Piastri, McLaren, Mercedes will be a doable team with budget drivers. So yeah, if you did go for Norris, you take a -10 this week, then a -10 to go back to the Piastri builds on for Bahrain. And then all of a sudden you're just picking up so many extra negative points that you just don't need for your team. And yeah, like Terry said, Piastri can still win this.
As we talk about that constructor pairing, we entered this week with McLaren and McLaren and Williams. Question keeps coming up in the chat about our faith in Williams this weekend. And I don't have a good feeling about Williams. And this is the driver I had hinted at a few minutes ago. Albon is on 3 straight DNFs at Suzuka. All 3 of those DNFs have been crashes, and 2 out of those 3 crashes have been on lap 1. So he does seem to have a way of getting collected at this circuit. And it still seems like Carlos Sainz having some complaints in the car. It just seems like we don't quite know what Williams are right now, just sort of toiling around in the midfield. Zach and Terry, is there anyone from Williams that you do trust, or are they a total avoid for this weekend?
Yeah, I think it's an avoid. I mean, if I said it before, if you have Williams and you have to stick with them. Let's say you've already taken a -10. So if you'd if you get rid of a Williams in your team, you're having to take a -20. I mean, even -10 to get rid of a Williams to go down to Racing Bulls or a Haas is still a bit of a push. But it's not the best situation. Do I think if they don't have any crashes, they will hit their threshold and get the budget? Yes. But that's the big thing, isn't it? Like you mentioned, will they not crash? The stats are saying they will.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a sketchy week, particularly if there's rain in the forecast or if there's anything you could see across all of the free practice sessions, even veteran drivers putting a tire or 2 into the gravel. Fernando Alonso put a lot more than that into the gravel in free practice too. So you could have a few drivers get beached before the weekend's over.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's there's loads of opportunity for that. And, going back to Williams, there's a lot of talk about Carlos not being comfortable with the car still. Even he's come out and admitted it this week. It's a very different car to drive than what Ferrari did. He talked about 10 races, which I'm not sure where he got 10 races from, but someone might want to remind him that's half a season. And when I saw that bit of a quote, I was like, really? So there's been a lot of talk about this. Lewis going from a Mercedes engine to a Ferrari engine was picked up on by the press a couple of weeks ago that actually they are very different cars to drive. The way they recharge, the way they work, the way they put the power down and take the power off is completely different and a new way of learning. And Carlos seems to be feeling the other side of the coin, going from a Ferrari to a Mercedes engine, which is obviously in that Williams. So I think there's a lot more on that than what we probably realise, and we don't kind of think when we think drivers just swap that actually some drivers are completely learning new engines, new controls, new teams, and new way of doing things. And I think that's definitely a big factor at play here, which is certainly showing its sign early on.
There was a moment I was hoping for a little bit of drama in FP3 where Charles Leclerc was on a flying lap and there was a Williams a little too close to the racing line. He got on the radio to holler about it. And I said, please be Carlos Sainz. Let's have some former Ferrari drama. But it was so it was a nothing.
Let's hope Carlos remembers what pit box he's in.
Yes. He also went past his pit box. Oh, my goodness.
Looking at the poll as well, talking about the constructors still, for any other alternatives to Williams, which basically is Racing Bulls or Haas at this point, 54% of people at the minute are saying Haas are the better constructor for Japan than Racing Bulls at 46. And I think I'd be inclined to agree. No, yeah, close. For Haas, yes.
That's so close. And I think it just goes back to here. You have VCarb with 17 expected points and the Haas. Oh, my screen is so small. Let's see if I can get this right. Haas is down here at 11.2 points. So slight advantage to VCarb there. But then when we go to the budget builder, you'll see that Haas is the best looking of all the constructors in terms of odds of getting the biggest price increase, 99%. So you would need at least a DNF plus a lot of positions lost, potentially 2 DNFs. Ferrari were at 99% odds last week, and anything can happen when stuff like that happens. So we'll see if Haas can do us proud.
Very much hoping so.
Also, while I have it up, I do want to show the weather because we had some questions about, is it a no negative week? Should I be worried about some of the rookies? This is what I'm seeing for the weather. And my American's showing all these temperatures are in Fahrenheit. But you can see the percent precipitation goes up to the high 90s in the early morning. And then it backs down as we get closer to the race start time, which is 2 p.m. local time. So there is still some chance of rain, but it looks like it'll be significantly wet in the morning. The only thing that I'd take from that, though, is that the temperatures are quite cool. And that could favor Mercedes and really vault George Russell up there for those of you considering Mercedes as your second constructor.
Yeah, it's scary weather-wise if it's not. I think I need a higher percentage for me to think of no negative. Because Japan and rain, it would be chaos, yes. But there is, like we see here, there is such a chance that we get to the race, it's not even raining. And yeah, we might have a lap 1 incident. But then I think for no negative, realistically, you're getting the most out of it if 2 or more of your assets have done bad. Whereas a lap 1 incident would only be probably only one of your drivers. And then it's still okay. But yeah, it's not the best for Japan. I think there's better options.
Yeah, definitely. I think the only thing we can sort of determine, though, is it can change 10 penny, can't it, in Japan. For 1 minute it can be sunshine. It reminds me of Silverstone in that weather front where it's kind of seems to have its own and then just changes completely on its head and gives you something completely random like torrential downpour when you least expect it. But looking at that, at least the grass will be wet, if nothing else, before the race starts, which is a bonus.
Right. And then also just leaving everybody with some of our tier list heading into this week, just to give you a sense for some of you that are asking some of this or that questions. We really like McLaren and Mercedes. Of course, Ferrari going to get all the way out of those assets because they're going to be losing value for each of the next 2 weeks. And like Zach mentioned a moment ago, Haas and Racing Bulls as the budget constructors to own.
Yeah.
How we doing on like, Zach?
Oh, let's have a look.
How we doing?
Actually,
If no one's hit like, if no one's hit like button, can we give Adam a sympathy like one because he's up early? It's quite nice to be on the other foot this year, isn't it? Yeah, we've had the first 2 races where Zach and I have been up at the crack of dawn, but this time it's Adam's turn, so there's a bit of calm there.
I know.
Waking up at what 5:30 feels like a luxury now.
It's like a lie in.
Oh, we're at 20 likes.
All right,
20 likes. Let's try and get up to. I think
21.
All of the times, yeah. We've
21
got up to 75, I think, in the
yeah, that was our record, huh?
in the China one. Yeah. So let's try and get back up to that.
All right, that sounds good.
Oh,
Simon wants to know, should I pick Tsunoda? And this is a really interesting question because Yuki has, according to the Sims, the best odds of getting driver of the day. Obviously, debut race with Red Bull, home race. I think a top 10 finish, he could get driver of the day, and that would put him on for some pretty solid points. I think the only thing that turns me off from Yuki is that price. I think he's like 16.8 million. So then what does that take away from the rest of your team? And do you have less coverage of McLaren at that point? So if you have enough budget to get Yuki in with McLaren, okay. But other than this week, I don't know if I'd recommend Yuki for the long haul.
Could Liam not get driver of the day if he puts in a good performance
Or
on the other foot? I know everyone is saying, yeah, there's this clear cut, it's going to be Yuki, but actually, as a part of me says, if Liam gets into the points, would that not throw the complete curveball of actually him getting driver of the day based on how people feel he's been treated with the driver changeover and that actually he's probably the harshest at this move, given just 2 races? I kind of feel that if he puts in a good performance, yeah, the internet, it's a crazy thing, this driver of the day vote, isn't it, that we've seen recently?
Yeah, and that's another reason why if you're in between the 2 McLaren drivers, I like Lando. And it seems like anytime he wins a race, he gets driver of the day. But Oscar Piastri, with his maiden pole last time out in China, couldn't get driver of the day. But Kimi Antonelli going from 8th to 8th somehow got driver of the day. It seems to work in mysterious ways. So I tend to like these drivers that are more of a sure thing for it.
Ooh.
we have a question in the chat for
just
budget building. Yeah, just the one.
Just one. I've seen more than one, Zach. I don't know what channel you're at.
For budget building, triple on Haas, not downgrading, but changing Williams to Haas and using the money to upgrade to Piastri and Norris. Should they do it?
Oh. Would that involve -10, I take it?
There's been no mention of a -10. So potentially not.
I like it.
Yeah, if not, yeah.
Very similar to what my lineup looks like.
I think our lineups could be quite similar.
Yeah, upgrading Piastri to
all.
Norris, I think you have a higher likelihood for driver of the day and fastest lap. And per the betting lines earlier, a potentially better chance of getting the race win. So I like that upgrade. Triple Haas, yeah, you're over-indexing on Haas, and if somebody DNFs, it hits you in both places. But if they survive, that's a big, big budget gain for you. So I think it's a risk worth taking.
Yeah, I'm with Michael. I think it's a risk, but not worth a -10. Is probably where I'm at in my head with that one. If you're taking a minus, I'd probably be inclined not to. But if you can move to that without taking a minus, then that feels like a good one. Hassel V-carb seems to be the question. So, and this is Kev's has just put one in there, which is the epitome of what I'm thinking, which is, isn't V-carb going to get more points than Haas? And yes, potentially.
Most likely, yeah.
Yeah. And that's why this feels like really crazy. That question goes exactly how I think on this. I'm looking at it from a twofold where points being prizes. Yeah, points being prizes. Let's be honest. That's what I was always told watching these game shows growing up. So I'm thinking points, but then budget, you're going to go the 99% Haas, aren't you? According to the Sims, and that's where it is.
Wait, it's just one of those things, isn't it? Where it's like, because I believe when we showed the expected points, is it really worth risking 6 points lost from Racing Bulls to Haas to not have that 99% chance of that 0.6. And that is sadly just how the game's going at the minute. You've got to get the budget up.
Rules of probability, isn't it?
So what we're hoping is that Haas start at the back, and then you just gain a few positions over the course of the Grand Prix, keep it tidy, and nothing bad happens. With VCarb, a lot of different outcomes because you have 2 drivers that are sniffing around the top 10. You could have one of those teamwork bonuses for qualifying. They also have the fastest pit stop in China, so you could get some pit stop bonuses. But if they don't do either of those things, they're just middling around P11 to P14, and that's not where we get a lot of points in this game. So a lot of interesting things to consider with this.
Did you see that Ferrari got investigated for their pit stops in China? That was interesting.
Did they?
Yeah, for they're 2.05, if I remember rightly. And the FIA actually watched their pit stops because the teams have complained that Ferrari have got so good at their pit stops. I mean, the irony in that is brilliant when we know the world records and sub 2 seconds. But they actually did a check on all of their equipment to check that the lighting system's working properly, everything's doing right, so there's nothing mechanical in there, nothing being sort of untoward with a change of equipment. All of that, they literally did a full-blown test on them during the race and during the practice sessions in the run-up to it as well, which is quite an interesting sort of thing I saw from the FIA. The teams felt compelled to complain that Ferrari managed a 2-second pit stop consistently, and secondly, the FIA felt the need to actually check that.
It was interesting too. Ferrari had the fastest pit stop, and it got vacated as a result of the disqualifications.
Yeah.
So, their losses. VCarb.
But if I remember, in Australia they were quite fast as well. That was one of the things that's one of the things the teams have picked up on. That it seems to be 2 lots very quick.
Well, it's going to take a lot more than pit stops to get me back into Ferrari after those first 2 races.
Oh.
So I will break the ice and share my team with you. We luckily had Lando from the last week, so it was simply just a matter of moving over into triple Haas. So I had Hadjar and Williams in these last 2 spots. So now we're going for a lineup where everybody could potentially get the max price gain this week. But if a Haas goes down, my team goes down. So that is what I'm rolling with. So for those of you on the VCarb or Haas fence, feel free to join me on the dark side with Haas. But I definitely wouldn't blame you for VCarb because they're projected to get more points.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. I like the look of that team. I really do.
Right. All right. So how are we doing on likes? Do I get the thumbs up to move over to people's lineups yet, or?
Oh, let's have a look. We're up to 47. Okay. Yeah, we're getting there.
It's supposed to be tracking all ways to do lineups. We should have done it 5 minutes ago instead of talk about Ferrari pit stops. We've only got an hour.
Okay, we got plenty of time and plenty of lineups. Let's do this.
All right. It was the plan. It had to be over 50.
So the current team is on the left here. This is an Antonelli team versus a -10 for points versus a -10 for max budget. So this points team is Piastri, Tsunoda, and then the max budget is what I just showed you for my team. So you know what my choice is. I think this would be a little bit harder to get out of, but you would get theoretically more points with Yuki. I think that driver of the day is going to happen for him.
Oh, yeah, it definitely looks like more of a differential team in the middle. But yeah, if you did get Yuki driver of the day, that would really help out because let's say, especially the team on the far right, if Norris does win and Yuki doesn't perform, then Norris would most likely get driver of the day, fastest lap potentially as well. He got it in Australia and China. And then all of a sudden you are losing quite a few points. But even if Yuki, let's say Piastri comes second and Norris comes first, and Yuki stole that driver of the day. Well, not stole. He deserved it.
Stole.
Secret safe with us.
Gets the 10 points. Then they're just knocking points off Norris. And then all of a sudden, that team doesn't lose out too much points. So it's a good buffer team to have. But yeah, you are risking it with Yuki. We still don't really know what he's going to be like in that Red Bull.
So I think we're all voting for this last team here. Go for the budget. and then come out on the other side over 102, 103 million, and then you'll have some really good options ahead of you.
Yeah, especially with a sprint race coming up as well, haven't we? So
Oh,
Look what
that's
we
a
have
lot of
here.
Antonelli.
That's a lot of green, yeah.
do you think we've got a Kimi
Planning to
fan?
go triple Haas, McLaren, Norris, Stroll, and Hulk. But the second team, all right, so first team is just a traditional budget builder, but the second team, they want to go for something wild. I like
See.
Go ahead, Zach.
Ooh. I'm going second team. Go second team. Put your faith in Woody.
The issue I have with these sorts of teams, especially the two A-tier assets right now, is this might just be my thinking, but I sort of just don't see the point in the budget situation, because if you're having two A-tier assets, that means you're blocking yourself off from getting one extra 0.6 million increase, which everyone else will be getting. And then at that point, surely you would just go Piastri, McLaren, Mercedes.
Yeah.
Because Mercedes would get more points than a second A-tier driver like Antonelli or Russell.
And that's why I like the last lineup better too, because I think what you can do is milk that cost cap gain, put it into Antonelli to upgrade him into Piastri, and then you have Piastri, McLaren, Mercedes, and then you're really cooking.
Yeah, I will get the third one.
See, we've convinced him. Terry, remember, you got 35 minutes to set your lineup if you haven't already hit the button yet.
I've done it. I've just took a plunge and gone with it, without pressing autofill or doing it by mistake. Just looking quickly at a couple of comments, Rebecca. That probably give you a clue to what I'm thinking, because I haven't taken a -10 either. Just in terms of the chat, and Sitman said the same thing. We're going from a Piastri to a Norris. I've stuck with Oscar.
I agree.
It's a little teaser, yeah.
Right now, the Sims have them separated by under 5 points. So taking the -10 to switch to Lando. And if you get enough cost cap boost this week to go to Piastri, McLaren, Mercedes next week, then you have to take a -10 to get out of it. Just stick with the extra budget this week.
I mean, just looking at this team as well. I think Terry was talking about it earlier in the stream as well. But it's actually crazy how we are considering, and this is a good team, by the way. This team costs about 93 million-ish. No, this is good.
I finished saying that's my lineup. That's what I mean. I finished saying that, I'm putting out with my name and leaving 8 million on the table.
And so for Liam here, I can sign off on this. If you're going to take a -10 to get Lando in this spot and you have all the budget builders, let's do it. I think after this week, we're going to say goodbye to Hulkenberg, and then a lot of these rookies who had DNFs and DNSs in Australia are going to start looking more and more favorable. So
I have a question on pricing before we move to the next team. How does the UK Liam switch work with new assets?
The theory is that we would pretend it's like Australia, where they have no previous race history, because these are new assets. And I think that is what Ryder has baked into the Sims for this week.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Yuki would need 21 points to get 0.6, and Lawson would need 11. So that's the whole issue with Yuki as well. He would need to get driver of the day if he was going to get that 0.6, because I doubt he'd get 20 plus points naturally.
That's what I mean. So I'm just wondering, that's something we probably haven't mentioned, actually, the change in the asset side of it. So.
Looking at
you also rock
right. So for the poll, I put in the best B-tier driver assets that can gain budgets. So it was basically all 4 of these drivers on the page right now. So Stroll, Ocon, Behrman, Hulkenberg, and it is. I was just about to say it was a tie between Ocon and Stroll. Ocon with 39% of the vote is the best B-tier asset you can have.
Just in time for we just had a question in the chat about Liam or Ocon for budget.
Oh yeah.
sounds like the people have spoken that it's Ocon.
Yeah. Go with the people. Esty Bestie bringing it home.
All right, let's run through a couple more lineups while we got him here. Ooh, some more from Woo True. Oh no, these are the same ones. Oh, I think these are the same ones. I'm gonna hit refresh and see if we've got new ones. Yes.
Reese has asked, has FP3 had any bearings on our teams? I don't think it has for mine.
Not if you budget building. I don't think it has. If I'm honest, I think if you're point scoring, Reese, then potentially yes with that midfield. But if you budget, sort of building, I don't think the free practice frees made a difference at all. Really,
I think it's basically cemented
Wow.
It's cemented Lando over Piastri as the number one driver, and it's brought VCarb closer into the conversation with Haas as the best budget builder. But I think Haas is still leading just because they need negative 31 points or more to get that point 6. Rafflecopter has dealt us quite the hand on this one. People have no faith in Ferrari this weekend. The reason why people don't have faith in Ferrari from a fantasy perspective is they're all going to lose, I would imagine, 0.6, perhaps 0.2, because of the DNFs in China. So I think that's
Ferrari would need 85 points to get a 0.3 million increase. 85. That's basically first and second. And are we going to see a Ferrari one too? Probably not.
Might see one, but the stewards might have something to say if it after. that plank where going into turn one seems to be playing as it is. But this is the point. But this is the point, there is there where no faith in Ferrari. It's not a faith in Ferrari. It's a faith in just the points, and that's what that double disqualification did to them in terms of assets, isn't it? Last time out, so it's a tough thing. So. I'd like to say now it's not a lack of faith in Ferrari, it's a lack of faith in Ferrari as an asset in fancy Formula 1. Could we click that, please?
Here's what's funny is that Rafflecopter hasn't given us 3 options. It looks like they've said, I've made 1 change per team, and here they are. So
and Ferrari's did it.
Noted.
Which I respect. I respect that loyalty.
Rafflecopter, if you're on and you wanted us to critique or give you options, do let us know, but those are your teams, and as a Lewis fan, I hope they all come through for you.
Yeah, I think he's trying to tell us that that's his team and that's his flag in his hand, and that's it. Team Ferrari all the way.
He's already locked in.
He's locked in. He's gone off somewhere.
All right. Current team versus 1 transfer versus 2 transfers. So Ooh. I imagine the 1 transfer team, you're trying to figure out if you can carry a transfer into Bahrain.
Yep.
But I don't think you would need it, because then you would just get out of one of these assets and then upgrade the Haas to Mercedes. Lando, you would get more points this week, but then you might lose some of it if you take a -10 to get to Oscar, Mercedes, and then downgrade one of these guys.
Oh, yeah, it's a hard one. It definitely is between, for me, team 2 and team 3.
Yeah.
It's annoying. It's kind of a cop-out from me, but it does depend on where your thoughts are for Bahrain. Because right now, it is a little bit of an issue, me having Norris in Japan going into Bahrain, because I'll most likely want to switch over to a Piastri McLaren Mercedes if the budget works out what I think it is. But then also, there's so many unknowns, and sometimes it is quite nice to just have if Norris gets more points, and let's say we do get a DNF from a Stroll or a Hulkenberg, and we don't get as many budget increases as we think, and then coming into Bahrain, it's not actually looking like Piastri, McLaren, Mercedes are good, then you've still got Norris in your team, which could end up being good. It's one of those things. It could swing both ways.
There's a factor in Bahrain as well. There's a couple of things. One, it's not a very high DNF track. For a start, lots of runoff areas, and secondly, it is a testing track. Bear in mind, these cars have raced in Bahrain, so this is going to be something really interesting coming next week, because the teams already have the data. They already know what the cars can do in Bahrain from the pre-season testing we had. And I think from an update point of view, I'm wondering how many teams have shipped to Bahrain instead of Japan, because they've got previous data, they've got pre-season data. And it's right smack bang in the middle of a triple header, and shipping your stuff to Bahrain is a lot easier to shipping it to Japan and then to Bahrain and trying something different in Japan. And looking at the update list, which I know we're trying to get onto later, I wonder if a lot of teams are holding out for Bahrain, knowing they've got so much data on it, that actually it's more of a fail-safe to bring an update to Bahrain than what it is to risk it in Japan currently.
So what I'm hearing is, if we get to Piastri, McLaren, Mercedes, and we ran it with rookies, not the worst week in the world to have it next week.
Yeah.
All right.
Very nice.
And just to bring it up to a question that we've had a few times, if it's your free transfers versus taking a -10, I would keep Oscar. If it's 1 transfer versus 2, I would lean toward Lando. But that's exactly what I did, so I am 100% biased.
Yeah.
Look
Well,
at
actually,
so
Wow.
producer Greg warned us about this slide. LH Ferrari. I think you're buttering me up. So this is a -30, a -40, a -50. Of course, if you're in between these scenarios, you should take out the wild card or you should take out limitless and make sure you don't incur all these penalties. I'm not a big fan of using limitless this week, but I would certainly use it over taking any of these penalties.
Yeah, I mean, I'm shell shocked. I mean, which is less of, I mean, I'm just speechless. I mean, yeah, you need to use the chip on this one or set up a new account. It's probably the only way around this.
I tell
if you
I
use
tell
your
all new
research,
players at the start of the season, do one team where you follow our advice and maybe it could be boring from time to time, and then one team where you do something like this. So maybe this is LH Ferrari's just go for broke team.
No, there's
Yeah,
that
definitely.
there's that mode that people do sometimes where they try to see if they can score as little points in a fantasy season as possible.
But there's
Yeah.
also, isn't there some leagues where you pay and you can't have certain assets and stuff? So maybe this is one of those as well, which we're not thinking of here. Maybe, there needs to be like a Ferrari asset or something. I mean, that doesn't fit for the third team, but
We
I'm
had a
not
few
quite sure.
people with lineups last year in no max leagues.
Yeah.
Zach, I'm seeing some requests for your team. So if you
Yes,
haven't locked
my
in your
team
lineup yet-
it's scheduled in 5 minutes to go live.
Ooh. All right, everybody,
Ooh.
stay tuned for the next 5 minutes.
Yes.
Not
Have we
even
got
I
any
know
more
what it
now,
is.
Adam? If you hit refresh, because we do this, and then we get to the end, and then Adam hits refresh, and we find we've got another 16 sat there.
There'll
We're
be a
up to
lightning round.
57 likes as well now. Let's try and push over 60 and then up to 70 and then up to that 75 point.
Just one at a time. All right. Thoughts on Haas over Williams or Racing Bulls? This is effectively, I think, what all three of us are doing to some extent. There's the risk with Haas, of course. If one of them DNFs, it hits you twice. That would really suck. But again, even if that happened, this Haas is still going to go up 0.6 million as long as the other driver finishes the race. So that's why we're in it.
Yeah, completely agree.
All right. King Ace. I can run that team with only one swap, which gives me 3 next week for points after budget.
See, I would still be inclined to swap the Williams for Haas.
I think at that point, I guess it would basically be in your situation where you'd have probably 7 or 8 million left over, and then
and they probably found themselves literally caught in the same mindset of, do I keep Williams knowing that I'm potentially going to, points wise, or do I switch out for Haas and leave that big pot of money on the side, which is probably the thinking behind it. That's exactly the same situation I found myself in. Actually, do I keep Williams in and keep close to the budget, or do I actually just take him out and leave that chunk of money gathering dust on the side ready for next week?
Yeah, I'm with you, Terry. I think with this, because the prompt says going for points after budget, meaning this week you're going for budget, I would have Haas in this spot. Get that 0.6 million. Then you don't need 3 transfers next week because you would just move either Stroll or Hulkenberg with the Haas constructor out to a Bortoletto and Mercedes kind of thing. And then you have the dream team.
That's actually something I wanted to get onto because someone in the chat said thoughts on Hajar after FP1 and FP2. And obviously Hajar and Bortoletto are very interesting assets coming to this weekend. Obviously, they might hit that minimum threshold. I'm hoping they do. It'd be great coming into Bahrain knowing we could just slap them into our team. Easy peasy. Figure out the rest of it.
Yeah, is that 4.5 we're thinking it's at?
I'm not sure. So I thought it was at 4.5, but I've had a little debate with the admin on F1 Fantasy Tools who thought they remembered it at 3.5. Now, of course, it was the one and only Logan Sargent that helped us find that minimum, but we've got to see exactly what that threshold is. Of course, if we find it this week, you'd have Hajar and Bortoletto not go down the full 0.6 million. But I love Hajar after this because he had a good race in China. It looks like he's set up for a good race this week too, and he could be the next rookie on the rise for cost cap next week.
We just have a look at Trevor's question, Adam, in the chat where he's put Racing Bulls seems like the much better play to me. Nearly same odds to go up 0.6, projected for most points of Haas, Williams, RB, and least expensive. I think we just hold on to that 99%, aren't we? I think there's a much safer thing in Haas. I think that's what we're saying. That Racing Bulls may give you more points, but odds-wise, actually, 99% with Haas feels a bit more secure than what VCAR can potentially give you. Have you got that up on there?
Yeah.
Where was it?
Yeah, so it's 99 versus 92 here.
So it's not a lot, to be fair, but points-wise, you know.
I just think, considering as well, when you get your if you have McLaren and you get the 2 times driver right, that Haas versus Racing Bulls difference in points isn't actually going to make much of a difference.
No, then you look at 7% swing, aren't you? So that's purely the reason, Trevor. Pure and simple. You know, it's odds rather than actual performance-wise. I think is the right thing.
Zach DVS is predicting that we have the exact same lineup again. Does that mean your team is out already?
DVS, shush.
Did you press send on the tweet before you actually asked for the, you know?
Well, not through.
Yeah, it is live now.
Okay, let's see if I can run over to Zach's Twitter.
It should be live now. What a surprise!
Look. Long distance high five to you, Zach. Good luck to us.
Shock face.
Look,
Terry,
I was also contemplating Racing Bulls.
You know, it's like playing with people who copy each other's homework. It's ridiculous, you know. People want variation. They don't want to see copy and paste.
Okay, well, speaking of variation, Terry, have you posted your team?
I have, actually.
Okay.
Oh,
see, that's how many. That's because no one follows me on Twitter, so I'm safe.
Perfectly fine team. So same build with Oscar instead of Lando.
Fine. Do we need to look at the rankings across the bottom of the screen on the ticker tape?
Oh.
Team. Let's just take a moment to appreciate the ticker tape at the bottom, which says where we are in the global standings here. You know,
if you don't have the patience to wait for it, I'll tell you. Terry is currently beating Zach and I. I was thinking about hanging out in the chat and asking Terry questions for the hour, but he let me come on and join him.
Yeah, Adam's surprised last week that I was suddenly above him. You know, we should screenshot that message you put on there. When are you above me? I was like, yes, I am.
Is that a typo? For ATL, any long run stats? Yes, actually, you know, I usually show those sims, and I didn't pull it up. Let's see if we can grab it really fast. Doing this on the fly is going to be ugly.
Hugo says, "What about no negative?" I think it's just a case of holding it, Hugo. I think there's more riskier races coming up later on in the season. I think we kind of missed the boat if you haven't used it in Australia in terms of the complete carnage that was. So I think if you still got it, I would just say hold on to it, Hugo. I don't think this is as bad. Once you get past that opening lap sort of potentially problems going into the S's on the first lap or so, it tends to die off a bit on that one. So I would just say probably hold it for now in terms of no negative, rather than use on this weekend. There's plenty of other opportunity over the season.
I agree. Long run pace looks like it favors the usual suspects with McLaren and Mercedes, the top two. Max does feel out of sorts, so it makes sense that he's after McLaren and Mercedes. Racing Bulls right at the bottom of the top 10, but if they don't make the top 10 and they're just trundling between P11 and P14, that's going to be tough from a fantasy standpoint. Good on track, but difficult for scoring points. And then we can go down.
Very harsh on Ferrari there. Ferrari, man.
It
new floor.
Looks like Ferrari's not expected to get it back.
But talk about updates. Ferrari's new floor is going to Bahrain, not Japan, which gives you an idea. Like I said earlier, that's what makes me lead into thinking of updates. So Ferrari have a new floor, but instead of risking it in Japan, they're going straight to Bahrain with it because of the uncertainty of it. So I do genuinely feel that we could see some tweaks for the cars next week, which will bring lights of Ferrari back into play potentially, and hopefully back into play from a fantasy point of view as well.
Yeah, once they go down the 1.8 million from the 3 consecutive 0.6 decreases, I think they're going to be a steal, and they could be on the rise too in terms of scoring points.
We've got some quick fire -10 wins. Would you take a -10 to switch Williams to Haas? I don't think I would.
I like Haas over Williams, but not so much. I would take a -10 to do it.
Mexis asks, Albon out for Stroll or roll over a transfer? So should they bring in Stroll or risk it with Albon?
Stroll will get you a budget game, wouldn't he, potentially?
This is
I
the
would
best.
think I'd agree.
This is the best first 2 races of Lance Stroll's career. Give me Lance Stroll instead of the transfer.
You know, it's what you get from being the team leader and having an inexperienced rookie as your teammate, isn't it? Going into the gravel. Didn't see Lance make that mistake.
Just to put more salt into the Ferrari wound as well. So on the poll, we have 100 votes. Will you be running a Ferrari asset in Japan? 94% say no. So only 5 people out of 100 people will be running a Ferrari asset.
The 5 Lewis fans are running the Ferrari asset.
Yeah.
One of them might be my burner team.
Just to answer Roy's question, I didn't take the -10 Lando over Piastri. I stayed with Oscar. So Roy's in exactly the same position as me. I didn't take it personally. So just to give you an idea on that one, I didn't feel it was worth it. As Adam said earlier, the points gain doesn't feel like it's worth a -10. If you get to it without it, maybe consider it. But if you got to take a minus, I don't think it's worth it.
We got Chris right under that. -10 to swap Stroll for Sonoda. No, I don't think so. Yuki is already going to be hard-pressed to earn enough points to justify that 18 million salary. I'd just keep Stroll, the extra money, the cost cap gain. Well, of course,
how many points? How many points does VCARB need for 0.6, Adam?
Zach, do you still have it up?
I do. Hang on a second. I've got it in
there.
thingy. They need -3. So it's very doable. It's just one of those things where a difference of 28 gap difference from VCARB to Haas.
Yeah.
Or as I like to call it,
31.
Haas can absorb a DNF and VCARB can't.
Yeah.
Hold on. We need to appreciate that Rick isn't running Ferrari this week. Now, for those, Rick's a good friend of mine who's run Ferrari, who's been teasing his actual team name is about Lewis going to Ferrari. The fact that Rick isn't running Ferrari is monumental. So I just want to take a moment to appreciate Rick in the chat for one, all of his messages and his support, and secondly, the fact he's not running Ferrari.
Well, thank you for joining us, Rick.
Thank you, Rick.
and congratulations for getting off the Ferrari wagon. I'm with Terry. I think for Bahrain they could be quite good.
Hopefully, yeah. They'll be back, Rick. Don't panic.
Ooh, Roy asks, is it worth running McLaren and Mercedes to lose 1 million in budget? I would say no.
No.
Just because I think it's also one of those things you've got to remember when you're losing 1 million budget, it isn't just losing 1 million budget, but you're losing that other 2 million gain in budget that everyone else is getting. So actually, it's technically a 3 million deficit you lose from doing something like that.
Yeah, you
have we done picks?
No.
I'm looking because I'm looking at a live stream countdown which says we're like chatting away 48 minutes into the chat and we haven't even done picks yet.
We're having good fun here. So
yeah,
let's run through. Zach and I have been on the same wavelength.
It looks even worse.
The whole show. Like I swear we haven't talked about this, but we have the exact same answers across the board, except for will a VCARB out qualify a Red Bull.
When you find out,
we've just got a yeah, we got a whole separate group chat just to be like, don't tell Terry what to do.
Quite clearly, an Adam and Zach group chat going on here.
Now I'm in dead last, so having the same answers as me does Zach no good. But it looks like Terry's the only one with some sense to put George in P3 after some of the issues that Max had in free practice. So that's a good thought. We all think
that's because this one doesn't rely on a budget, by the way. When you pick this one, I don't have to think of a budget build. I can just pick who I think's actually going to win, not who I think will get me the most budget. So that's why this one looks a lot different.
So if you want to join the three of us, be sure to head over to the FanAmp app, select the races, and then do your picks after each session. One winner every session is going to receive a special prize from our sponsor, Fifth Gear Garms. I've got the Charlotte Leclerc helmet this week.
I've
got a lot of
rocking the Max one.
Oh, fantastic!
I brought mine on.
Don't worry, Zach. You wore yours last time.
Don't worry, Zach. You were left out of that message deliberately.
All right, I'm going to refresh the teams. Let's see who have I not gone through. this one looks new. Full budget or McLaren and Mercedes? We are team full budget this week. But if you are looking to make a comeback in your league, Toy Tank, or if you have a lot of budget and you just want to focus on points, that's probably the right team to do it.
It's crazy as well to think that that second team with the Piastri, McLaren, Mercedes, that team coming into Bahrain probably will, if Hajar and Bortoletto don't crash, would look superb. But it's just, I don't know, later down the line when you then have to move away from those teams, potentially if some other meta comes up, you'll be like a good million or two behind everyone else, and then that could cause some problems.
Yeah, it looks like a big movement toward cost cap gain this week. All right. I have 103.1 budget. Oh, good for you. You're more than most of us. I'm deciding between these. Williams means one swap and one carryover. Oh, we talked about this one earlier. I think we'd prefer Haas without the carryover. But I mean, this week too, a lot of folks, I think it was whatever it was, 54 to 46 on V-carb. So I think either of these would be good.
I think the first one, yeah.
That's quite an interesting three teams, though, because I think all of them, like, if you get down to generalizing it, all of them are good. It's just which one is the best of the best. So if I saw a Piastri, McLaren, Williams team, I'd still say you're probably going to be fine. It's just, it could be a bit better.
Yeah.
Rachel May Cook, I saw Rach in the chat earlier. So this is why we have all those Albon questions from Rach. Hopefully we have steered you in the right direction, potentially away from at least one of these Williams assets, because I'm feeling a little uneasy about Alex. Ooh, Harrison's back with an update. You guys convinced me to go all in on budget building. Welcome to the dark side, Harrison. All right. I have 3 transfers and a load of budget. Who should I bring in? So you have the Adam and Zach special on the end.
Second one with Kimi.
That second one's pretty good. That is.
Yeah, I quite fancy the second one, actually.
You basically have the budget building on the bottom. High points upside from Oscar and Kimi.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's not too bad. How much?
I think it'd be a differential. I think that second one would give you a differential to all the others trying to budget build. So if anything, you might gain a few extra points with Kimi in there, which might be the difference while still getting a bit of budget as well.
Wow, they have a big budget if they can actually do that team. Because I'm looking at that. Oh, actually, no, they don't. My bad. Because they dropped Stroll down to a Haas.
Yeah.
I would.
Yeah, they'd still have 100 free plus.
Yeah, I would be inclined to get the second one and use it as a difference.
All right, this is my third team. Have enough budget to go Russell, but saving for Piastri next week. Oh, but with Alex as your 2x.
Whoa.
I think for this week you've got to divest the Mercedes constructor to try to improve on Alex.
Yeah, I think you got 2 choices, haven't you? You know, you either go for Russell and get the points, or you drop that Mercedes down to a Haas and then bring Piastri in now. I think if that was me looking at that would be the options.
And if you have a lower budget team and you can't afford Piastri straight away, I'd be fine with Russell or even Antonelli, just someone that's going to get you top 5 driver points this week.
Coming back to the chat as well, Overtake asks. Overtake asks, do you think it's worth using a wild card to avoid a -10? And I would say if it's just a -10, I think I would say no to
Take it. Yeah.
Take the hit.
Yeah.
For me, at this point of the season, if you're taking -30 or more, it's an automatic. -20 or more, I don't like it.
Thinking about it,
yeah. Somewhere around like the midway point of the season, if you still have wild card and you're about to take a -20, then just use the wild card.
Just saw that one. Williams just need 13 points to rise 0.6. Is it really worth a -10 to go to Haas? No, I wouldn't take a minus to go to it. I would stick with Williams if you take a minus. If you can get to it without, then percentage-wise, it's a better bet. But if you need to take a minus, stay with Williams. Despite Adam saying that Albon's not going to finish lap 1.
I'm just worried that he could continue. A lot of questions about it. DP says Albon's on my team. Should I gamble?
I think you already are
If you're
gambling.
a gambling
You're gambling
person.
by having Albon in your team, really, aren't you? With that statistic, so you've already proven that you're gambling. So gamble again.
Look,
Rebecca
we never
brings
know.
up-
We could come out of this with Albon having more than 19 points, then all of a sudden it doesn't even matter. I'd be very surprised with that.
Rude. So the only reason for Haas is budget building. I know that question has come up a couple of times.
Mhm.
If some people may be late to the stream, so that's why that's on there. So yeah, budget building. Haas are 99% almost guaranteed to get a price rise. So that's why Haas are frequently going into everybody's lineups this week is what you see. Not because we think that there's some amazing performance from the Haas that is going to be a lot before qualifying. If you're betting on race results, no, don't go Haas. And if you're betting on budgets and fancy points, go Haas.
It's true. Guys, we're full screen again. Means we have 5 minutes
Ooh.
left just to do some lightning round questions. I see Greg's in the chat hyping everybody up to get us to 75 likes. So if you're asking some questions, please be sure to hit the like button so we can be back here to do this more and more for 24 races this year once again.
Rachel's in panic mode. What are we doing for Rachel?
Rachel, I want to know. I want to know what you decided on.
Oh, right,
after
yes.
you lock it in.
Right. She's responded. Well, now I'm confused. You've made me consider racing bulls. All right. So now she just doesn't know Haas or racing bulls.
Those are two good options, though. So don't be at peace with whichever one you pick.
Flip a coin.
Look,
You got 4 minutes to go.
Yeah, we're all team Haas. Are we?
Yes, Hakan.
Yeah.
The three of us are team Haas, but VCarb's not a bad decision either. We won't judge you for it.
Purely on percentages. That's why. Nothing else. Pure percentage. Yeah, both got a rookie in there. Both got potentially a DNF in there. So it's more safety in numbers in terms of percentage. That's it.
Rebecca brings up a good point about taking a -10 from moving from Piastri to Lando. Lando's more likely to get the 0.3 million. So depending on how hungry you are for the cost cap versus how many points, if you could take that 10-point hit to get up to Lando and then get that potentially guaranteed 0.3 million, because Lando's at a really good spot this week too. I can see why you do that.
Well, yeah.
I did wrestle with that one. I did wrestle with budget over. If I'm already sacrificing to budget build, then actually is it worth sacrificing the -10 for Lando as well, to be honest. As
I don't know why that slipped my mind, actually. Yeah. I have just realized Piastri is only a 59% chance to get over that 0.3 million threshold.
Yeah,
I think it's just because,
not as guaranteed as Lando. He would have to get something.
How long have I got to take the -10 and move Piastri out?
All right, we got 3 minutes left. Get those questions in if you have them.
Get this question. Put it in the polls, Ash. Should I change Oscar for Lando just so I can feel like I'm in the group chat and have the same team as everyone else?
He's brought it back to it.
Guys, couple questions in the chat. Pranav wants to know Williams versus VCarb. We're just talking points. Probably Williams if we're just talking points. But that's close.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be quite close with all of those constructors this weekend, because let's say hypothetically Tsunoda does perform, and when I mean perform, he gets into the top 10. He's like 9th or something. I think that would stop any of the B-tier constructors. You know how, like, I believe in each of the races in Australia and China, Williams got an extra 10 points for getting both drivers into Q3. Then Racing Bulls got it in China. If Tsunoda performs, I think those points won't be on offer for each constructor, meaning they're all going to be closer to each other on points. I think.
There you have it. Lots of love in the chat. Rach, thanks so much for sharing your dilemma with us and for liking and subscribing, of course. We're really glad to have you here. Reese, great to start your day with you. I'm going to try my best to ramp down and get some shut-eye before my kids wake up, but I'm going to need a Terry-style coffee when I wake up in the morning.
Do you know where I'm going today? In a minute after qualifying, actually, I just want to share this. I'm going to see the monster trucks. So if anyone wants any Formula 1 updates, it won't be coming from me because I'm off to see monster trucks. with the boys and my dad later. So yeah,
That's a
if anyone
great
wants me,
day.
I'll be watching cars being crushed by massive monster trucks at the in Birmingham. So yeah, that's where I'm going in a bit after qualifying. So yeah,
That's a great day.
Yeah.
All right,
for
we're
me.
in the final seconds to qualifying. So good luck, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back in just a few days to preview Bahrain and get you ready for the next race in this triple header. So the season just keeps on rolling.
Thank you, everyone. Catch you all soon.
Take care, everyone.